All right, here we go. This is how you're going to finish your spreadsheet for the lab that we did on Tuesday. Hold on one second. So in lab, we did this tab where it says heat capacity. Right now we're going to do the tab down here that says calorimetry. So make sure that you put in your name. Make sure that you do your section number. We are 128-03. Remember that the blue boxes are data that you should have in your notebook. I actually tried to mirror the data table that I put on the board based on these blue boxes here. So go to your notebook right now and fill in all of the data from your notebook into trial 1, 2, and 3. Now you don't have specific heat of water because that is just a known value. So I do want you to put in 1.000. We're going to do 4 sig figs. Excel tries to help you, and sometimes it's not very helpful. And in this case, it's not, because we need 4 sig figs and it takes them away. And so depending on your version of Excel, you will have a increase or decrease significant digits button. And so you want to make sure that you get 4. And with Excel, it's really nice because if you highlight a box and then you come down here to the bottom right, you can left click it, hold, and drag that value across. And then you don't have to type it all the time. So volume of water you have in your notebook. You have all of these masses in your notebook. You also wrote down all of your average temperatures and standard deviations. So I'm going to type some numbers in right now, and you should be filling in your numbers. All right, so these are the numbers that I have. Your numbers will be different. The numbers in the blue boxes for you will be different depending on what you did. Now we'll move to the red boxes. Red boxes always mean a calculation, and it also always means that you should be starting whatever is in this box with an equal sign. The density of water is 1 gram per milliliter, and so we're going to use that fact to help us go from milliliters of water to grams of water. So you're just going to take the number that's up here in B8 and multiply it by 1. And you can click and drag that into the other cells. Heat capacity is the specific heat times the mass. So heat capacity, hopefully you covered this in lecture, is going to be specific heat times mass. So for cell B10, I'm going to hit equals my specific heat times my mass of water. I'm going to hit enter, and then I will highlight that cell, go to the bottom right, left click, hold, and drag it across. Moving on to cell B15, I want to know the initial mass of my food. So this is before I burned it, and I have my mass of my watch glass, paperclip, and food, which was the marshmallow, and then I also have the mass of just my watch glass and paperclip. So I'm just basically going to be subtracting row 13 minus row 12. So again, these are red boxes. You want to hit equals, and I'm going to do B13 minus B12. Hit enter, highlight that cell, go to the bottom right, left click, hold, and drag. Done. Okay, the final mass of food is what was the mass after you were done burning it. And so this one will be equals B14 minus B12. Hit enter, and then click and drag. So then your change in food mass, how much actually burned, is going to be equals what we started with, which is B15, minus what we ended up with, which is B16, enter. And click and drag. Now this is wonderful because it's got 4 significant figures, because when you measure your masses on the balance, you will notice that there are 4 digits after the decimal. And so when you're adding and subtracting, you always want to have the number of digits after the decimal the least, and we should have 4 in each of those. Okay, moving on. We're going to do the temperature. So my change in temperature is just your final minus your initial. So equals B21 minus B19. Hit enter. Click and drag. And then uncertainty in temperature change. So I'm going to show you a page from your lab manual. It's page 103. So on page 103, when you have multiple uncertainties, so with our temperature measurements that we took from Microlab, there was uncertainty in the measurement at the beginning, and there was uncertainty in the measurement that we took at the end. So when we're talking about the uncertainty in the temperature change, we have to take into account both of those uncertainties. Fortunately for us, statistics does that, has a bunch of formulas for us to determine uncertainty, and so this is page 103. In your lab notebook if you want to look into this more deeply. But basically what we're going to do is take each standard deviation and square it, add them together, and then take the square root of that. So how is that going to look in our spreadsheet? We're going to hit equals, and in Excel, the abbreviation for the function for square root is SQRT. And then I'm going to open my parentheses. I'm going to take my standard deviation from B20, and then I'm going to do the caret key, and I'm going to square it. So B20 raised to the second, and then I'm going to add plus my other standard deviation, which is B22. I'm going to square it, and then I'm going to close my parentheses. Hit enter, and you're all set. And then you can just click and drag it. So yeah, this should actually say page 103 right here. Where it says 106, it should say page 103. Okay, so heat gained. You've done this in lecture. I know you have. It's heat equals mass times specific heat times change in temperature. Well, the interesting thing about this lab is that the mass times specific heat, we actually did that right here. Remember, we multiplied specific heat times mass. So we already have the first part up here, mass times specific heat. And then change in temperature is what you calculated here. So that's where we're going to be getting the numbers from. So this is going to equal, you're going to go up to the heat capacity and grab it, so that's B10, and then you're going to multiply, so asterisk, times the change in temperature, which is B23. Hit enter, and then you can highlight, go to the bottom right, left click, drag. And then heat per mass of food. So think about the marshmallow. We had a mass at the beginning, we had a mass at the end. This is how much actually burned. And so this row is asking us, okay, so here's how many calories that we got, that the water absorbed, how much of that was from the marshmallow. And so really you're just going to take the heat that you just found, so B27, divided by the change in the food mass, which is B17. Hit enter. Bring it on over. We'll talk about sig figs for these boxes in a minute when we're all done. All right, so average. On all of your spreadsheets for this lab, we'll always be doing averages and standard deviations. So again, it's a red box, hit equals. The function is average. Open your parentheses. You're trying to find the average heat per mass of food, which is this row right here. So I'm going to click and highlight B28 through B30. I'm sorry, B28 through D28. Close parentheses, hit enter, and then the standard deviation is just going to be equals STDEV, open parentheses, and do those same three numbers. So then what we want to do, this calorie is the big calorie. And I had this on the board in class and it was very brief, but I said that a food calorie is 1,000 little calories. So we use little calories in chemistry lab. Food scientists use kilocalories basically. And so we're just going to convert the calories little c per gram to calories big C per gram, and the conversion factor is 1,000. So basically you're just going to take these numbers here and divide by 1,000. And because we have the average right here, we're just going to be taking the average. So equals this number divided by 1,000. That's all you do. And then the next cell, B34, is going to be equals, sorry, C34 is C31 divided by 1,000. There. All right, so that's how you do the spreadsheet. Now let's talk about the actual lab report. So this spreadsheet, what you want to do is you're going to print out this tab for me, and you filled this all in lab, so it should be done. You're also going to print out this tab for me, and then you're also going to upload it to Moodle. So let me see if I can find the spot for that. So here's your completed spreadsheet for experiment 1. That's where you're going to upload it. And here's your rubric. Again, don't forget to look at that before you turn stuff in. You will also be doing, let's look at all the requirements for the lab report. So hard copy of the heat capacity spreadsheet. That was tab 1. Hard copy of the calorimetry. That's what we just did. Okay. Then you're going to upload it right here. Now this is one thing I forgot to tell you to do in lab, so you can do it at the very start of lab or maybe get there a tiny bit early. You're going to open up just one of your plots from the Marshmallow lab and just print it out. So we'll worry about that when you get to lab on Tuesday. Sample calculations. We want to make sure that you understand the math behind the actual Excel calculations. So you're going to do sample calculations for these 6 cells. So what does that mean? Let's look back at our spreadsheet. So B17, 18, and 32. So you're going to show me, how did you calculate this? What are the actual numbers that you used to calculate that, and what were they? So you would want to say cell B17 is change in food mass. It equals the initial mass minus the final mass, which equals 0.6174 minus 0.4223. Now, if you want better explanation than that, if you go back to Moodle and you scroll down just a little bit, it has an example of sample calculations. This is from a lab from last semester. So what some people like to do, I actually like to go backwards. Like you put the cell that you're trying to find the calculation for, you write down the cell numbers that are in the formula, and then just go through and say, so what is that? Oh, well, H11 was the concentration of acetic acid, which equals the concentration of sodium hydroxide times the volume divided by the volume of the acetic acid. Then you actually plug the numbers in, and then you write down the actual answer. Okay, so as long as I see the cell formula, what each of those cells represents, which is right here, and the numbers and the answer that go with it, I will be happy. Okay, so if you have any more questions about that, please email me and we can talk about it. All right, going back to Moodle. All right, so we've talked about these first 5 bullet points. Your NCR pages, you're just going to do the carbon copy of the pages that you wrote on. You're going to tear them out and staple them together along with all of these things. And then we do have 4 questions that we want you to answer. So do an internet search to find the value